Hey, my name is Sarah Jelena Wilka, and I am really excited about sharing with you about circular time and sort of how some of these ideas came to be and what does it mean to sign up with us here. And it was interesting. In the last few days, I've been doing my own circular time reflection, which I do every year. And at least once a year. I often do it 2 or 3 times a year because I find it really helpful to do it 2 or 3 times. Not necessarily much more than that. And because I often look at questions that other people, because this whole reflection thing has become a big business. Like, what are you going to do for your annual reflection has become a thing. There's workshops and you can go on retreats. And I've led some circular time retreats myself. They're really great. I love doing this in 3 or 4 days with people, even 5 days. It's amazing. And I love those. And maybe you've been to some version of that for yourself as well. They're great. But I often like to see what are the questions that other people are asking, because the questions we ask are so critical. And I know you know this. I know you know that the questions that you ask yourself help to determine how you're thinking, what you're doing, how you're behaving, how you're receiving information, how you're putting things out there, how you're creating the amazing things that I know you are creating in the world. And I realized how many of these reflections, especially if you're in any kind of a business reflection process or even a nonprofit or work related, have to do with this question, where were you successful? And where did you have challenges? They usually want you to answer both of these questions. And I decided to try that question on, just to try it on, And almost as soon as I did, it just was like a coat that didn't fit right. I'm like, ooh, this feels really uncomfortable. And so I thought about it some. I'm like, wow, I don't even know how to answer this question. Where was I successful this year? And so it's not a question that we have in our workbook. It's not something that I ask people very often. It's not something I actually think a whole lot about. And I had one of those moments of I'm really different than a lot of the things around me, because apparently everyone's asking this question of when and how and where were you successful? Even if you're defining success on your own terms, which I suspect some of you are, it's just not a question that's very important to me. And so I was talking with my partner about it, and she's like, she pointed out to me, grew up in a really unusual context because of you have some neurological divergences. And it was so interesting because when I was growing up, they were called learning disabilities. That's actually the language I kind of grew up with and I'm pretty comfortable using. So I have 2 different diagnosed learning disabilities that were diagnosed when I was 9 years old. And I come from a family that has what we might now call mini neurological divergences. And I come from a family of educators. They understand a lot about education and the educational system that we're in. And you might imagine that comes with a fair amount of critique of the educational system. But my father was a high school math teacher and my mother worked in the community college. They actually both taught in the community college in different points in time. And so they had a lot of thoughts about success, as almost any teachers and probably some of you listening also do. And I realized that I was so fortunate, so grateful to my parents and to me, the teachers who supported me, that I understood very early on that the questions about the metrics of success that the educational system was using were not designed for my brain and for my way of being in the world. And that was not my problem. That had to do with the educational system and with the institutional system that is the educational system. And that for me, what I needed to do was to figure out how to do the best I could. And we had all these sorts of adaptations and I learned all these strategies about test taking, was to do as best as I could within that system. But I never identified my sense of self-worth or my sense of my intelligence or brilliance or capacity with the metrics and the standards of success that institutional system was giving me. And I was incredibly fortunate that my parents never ever equated a B or on a test with me not being intelligent. And they made sure that I never equated that for myself either. And I'm saying that because we have these notions of success have done so much damage to people's understanding of who they are and what they're trying to do in the world. And I realized I just never kind of took on a lot of the dominant culture's notions of success. Now, there are questions that are really important to me. And there are times when I feel oh, I've really missed something. I've missed the mark. And there's absolutely times in the course of the last year where I'm oof, that was hard. That didn't go the way I wanted it to. I do set something that resembles goals, although it's not quite the same type of goals as a lot of other people in my life. But I don't measure myself or a lot of what I'm doing in the world against the types of metrics that that I think are really common. And then that's reflected in our circular time calendar process. Questions about standard notions of success aren't really in there. I do have a lot of questions about where are you held in love? And what are you learning? And what are you noticing? And where is spirit? When you look at all these different patterns across the different concentric circles, across the different avenues of your life, what is life asking of you? And we don't take time to learn. That doesn't mean I'm not learning, right? I'm absolutely learning. I like to think that every year I'm learning. But there's a way of framing that we have that's really different than a lot of what you see in other reflective guides. And I think the success framework is just one of those. I kind of just want to articulate that for people. So if your surprise is not there, honestly, in the 8 years I've been teaching this, no one has said I really miss the success questions. But it's not the point, because I don't think that our worth and dominant culture's measurement of success should be linked. Because they're just separate. We are worthwhile because we are worthwhile. Your time, whatever you have done this past year and whatever you haven't done this past year, because we absolutely have a list of encouraging people to look at what they haven't done as well as what they have, because that's really helpful. And we need to be honest and we need to be truthful with ourselves. And sometimes we need to change our expectations or be able to have conversations with other people in our team and life about what expectations do we want to collectively share together. Sometimes we need to have very difficult conversations, and you need to have these year-in reflective processes to get there. But that doesn't mean that you need to measure yourself by a standard that maybe isn't the standard you want to be trying to achieve. And it might not be right for your body and your brain. Now, if it is right for you, great, because I do think there are people for whom their bodies and brains love having some of those checklists. Awesome. That's okay too. You can totally do that. But I just want to say, we have a space here at Sequoia Samanvaya. We're really trying to create a space for a lot of different ways of learning and knowing and being. And sometimes that means we're not doing things the way they've done the rest of traditional dominant culture society. And I like to think that that's part of what is an advantage to what we're doing, or just different. Maybe it's not even an advantage, because even that is getting into some of these success metrics, right? But it's something that we can offer. And I hope that you, regardless of whether or not you take this particular course with us or not, that's up to you. But I hope that you also can take away from this little clip the incredible importance of questioning what is your relationship to success. And is that serving you?